Darius Langston, a 29-year-old school counselor in Baltimore, finally takes a DNA test to explore his roots after his mother's quiet passing. He's always believed his late father, Frederick Langston, was a good man, a factory worker who lived humbly and doted on his only child. But when the test results trigger a forensic match to an unsolved 1989 triple homicide in Georgia, Darius's entire world collapses. His father, soft-spoken, church-going, never even yelled, is now a posthumous suspect in one of the most gruesome unsolved killings in the South. As Darius investigates, digging into old photo albums, gas station receipts, and grainy security footage stored in cold archives, he uncovers a hidden identity, a prison break, and ties to a violent anti-government militia. Along the way, he wrestles with loyalty, shame, and whether love can coexist with monstrous truth. Before we expose the secrets buried in this case, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because in this world of lies, betrayal, and missing files, one click might be your only way to the truth. Now, let's begin. The DNA sheet had been sitting on the edge of Darius Langston's dresser for 3 weeks, still sealed, still haunting. It had been a gift from a coworker at the high school, a small gesture of sympathy after his mother's funeral. And maybe it'll help you feel connected kind of thing. Darius had smiled politely when he got it, even thanked her, but something about the idea of digging into family secrets after a burial felt disrespectful. Final was supposed to mean final. But that Tuesday night, something tugged at him. Maybe it was the quietness of the house, how her voice was gone, how the kettle never screamed anymore. Or maybe it was the way her old jewelry box, now his, still smelled like lavender and menthol, as if she were about to walk through the room again. Darius opened the kit. Swab, seal, send. That's all there was to it. Simple instructions. But when he dropped the package into the mailbox the next morning, something in his gut twisted. He had no idea that 4 weeks later, he'd be sitting in a Baltimore police station, across from a detective with trembling fingers, a man who kept blinking too hard at the printed report in front of him. "You said your father's name was Frederick Langston?" Darius nodded, calm. "Yes, sir. He passed away when I was 17. The detective didn't respond. He just slid the manila folder across the table. It was open, the inside marked with an old Georgia Bureau of Investigation seal. Darius caught the headline above the mugshots. Warwick Harlan, suspect in 1989 Atlanta triple homicide, presumed dead. Warwick Harlan looked eerily familiar. No, not familiar. Identical. His father. Same cleft in the chin. Same mole just above the left eyebrow. The same way his shoulders tilted slightly left, like something once broke and never healed right. "That's not possible," Darius whispered. "We thought the same," the detective replied. "But the DNA sample you submitted matched evidence from the crime scene. Blood droplets, saliva on a cigarette butt, partial prints from a kitchen knife." Darius blinked, stunned. No. My dad was a factory worker. He never even got a parking ticket. He took me to chess tournaments, man. He prayed before dinner." The room felt suddenly too small, like the truth was a gas leak, and someone had struck a match. The detective leaned in. "We believe your father lived under an assumed identity. Frederick Langston was never in any federal database prior to 1991. That's when Warwick Harlan disappeared from custody during a transport convoy. 2 guards dead, a third in a coma. Since then, nothing." Darius tried to breathe. "So what are you saying? That my entire life was built on a lie?" "We're saying," the detective said carefully, "your father may have been the most wanted man in Georgia history. And now, because of your DNA, that case is open again." That night, Darius sat alone in his car, parked outside his childhood home. He stared at the porch steps where his father used to sit with his Bible and his mug of black coffee. He remembered the calloused hands that fixed his bike chain, the stern warnings to stay away from trouble, the quiet love in every sacrifice. And yet now, those same hands were tied to a knife. A gas station robbery. 3 bodies in a rundown Atlanta home. Darius pulled out the old photo album, the one with faded edges and coffee stains. He flipped through the pages. Holidays, school dances, cookouts, graduation. The photos told one story. The DNA told another. And something in between those 2 truths was hiding, waiting to be uncovered. The next morning, Darius Langston called out of work for the first time in 2 years. He didn't offer a reason. Just left a voicemail with the principal's assistant and shut off his phone. There were no words for what kind of absence this was. It wasn't grief, and it wasn't illness. It was something deeper, something messier, a collapse of self. He sat in the attic for hours. That part of the house still smelled like dust and old cedar, the kind of scent that clung to storage bins and wrapped itself in old coats. Darius moved slow, careful. The last time he'd come up here was when his mom passed, boxing up memories that were too heavy to deal with. But now, his eyes scanned for one thing, proof. He found it in the corner beneath an old folding table. A shoebox wrapped in newspaper. Inside were items that didn't match the man he knew. A torn Georgia driver's license with the name Warwick Harlan, a newspaper clipping folded into eighths, and a Polaroid of his father, or rather, Warwick, in front of a rust-colored Chevy pickup with a rifle slung behind his back. He was younger, harder. There was a cigarette tucked behind his ear, and the look in his eyes wasn't the one Darius remembered. It was colder, calculated. Darius dropped the photo like it burned. Next was a small leather-bound notebook. Inside were scribbled numbers and short, coded entries. August 17th, 89. Decatur. Cleaned up. No noise. August 18th, 89. Leave by night. Darrow's girl too chatty. August 21st, 89. Must cut ties. Head north. Assume Langston ID. Darius's breath hitched. There it was, written in the very hand that once signed permission slips and wrote church donation checks. A plan to vanish, to become someone new, to become Frederick Langston. He flipped the notebook's final page. Taped inside was a smaller photo, faded with time. 3 people, a younger Warwick, a light man with a toothpick smile, and a woman with jet black curls, all armed, standing in front of a plywood shed painted with a crude V inside a circle. Darius didn't recognize the woman, but the man? That was the same face he'd seen on an old FBI wanted page the detective had shown him. Ray Bones Darrow, a former militia enforcer turned fugitive. There were no names on the back of the photo, just 4 letters scrawled in black ink. NORC. He typed it into his phone. Dozens of results popped up, but one in particular froze his blood. National Order for Righteous Control, a fringe militia active in Georgia and Alabama in the 1980s. Suspected in multiple racially motivated bombings, disappearances, and the 1989 Bramble Street murders in Atlanta. Group disbanded after a raid. Few members ever arrested. Bramble Street. That was the cold case. The triple homicide. The one his father's DNA had matched. Darius shut the shoebox and sat back. His father wasn't just a runaway killer. He'd been part of something bigger. Something organized. And from the way that notebook read, he hadn't just run. He'd escaped and reinvented himself on purpose. But why raise a black son? Why leave that group and come north? Why become a man who taught Bible verses and took his kid to Howard University tours? Had he changed, or was he hiding? That night, Darius returned to the precinct. Detective Lyles, the same man who dropped the folder across the table the day before, looked surprised when he walked in, holding the shoebox like it was radioactive. You said you were done talking. I lied, Darius said. My dad did too, for decades. He placed the box on the table and opened the lid. Lyles leaned forward, pulling on gloves. When he saw the notebook and the photos, he let out a low whistle. Jesus, this is federal. The feds shut down Newark 35 years ago. Or thought they did. Darius's eyes didn't move from the photo. You said 3 people were killed. Who were they? Lyles paused. 2 black teens, college students, and a white woman, Newark member. She'd apparently tried to tip off authorities. She was found tied up. Execution style. Darius felt sick. So, he killed one of his own? Looks like it. Maybe he was trying to run back then, too. A beat of silence. Lyles sat back, crossing his arms. This what you found could break this wide open. You sure you want to keep digging? Once we start pulling these threads, there's no putting them back. Darius nodded, quietly. I need to know who raised me, he said. All of him. Even the part he tried to bury. 2 days later, the FBI came to collect the shoebox. They didn't come with sirens or jackets that screamed bureau. Just 2 plain sedans and a tall black agent named Special Agent Carver, whose presence filled the room like a sermon. Calm, heavy, no wasted words. Mr. Langston, Carver said, nodding politely as he stepped into Darius's front room. I want to thank you for your cooperation. What you've provided could be instrumental in finally closing the Bramble Street murders. But more importantly, it might bring some long overdue justice. Darius sat across from him, tired but steady. I'm not doing it for justice, he said. I'm doing it because I don't know who I am anymore. Carver studied him quietly. Sometimes truth works like erosion. Doesn't ask permission. Doesn't wait till you're ready. Darius didn't answer. Carver opened the shoebox, flipping through the contents. When he got to the photo of the 3 armed people, he paused, then slipped it into a plastic sleeve. That woman, he said, tapping the edge of the photo. Her name was Renee Bishop. She was 23, a Newark recruiter turned whistleblower. Her body was found inside the Bramble Street house. You sure it was her? Darius asked. Positive. I recognized her from an old intel folder the second I saw this. Darius leaned forward. So if my father Warwick was trying to escape NORC, and she was trying to expose it too, why would he kill her? Carver's eyes didn't blink. We don't know that he did, he said. But someone made sure she never talked. He slipped the sleeve into his briefcase. The Bureau will follow this. But if you find anything else, letters, journals, old friends, call me directly. He left his card. Black print. Clean serif. Heavyweight stock. That night, Darius went digging again. This time, he combed through a box of old mail his mother had bundled in the closet. Old tax forms, birthday cards, bank receipts. Some addressed to Frederick Langston, others under W. Harlan, carefully crossed out. But one piece stood out. A faded postcard. No return address. Just a picture of a run-down gas station under a wide Georgia sky. The kind of place where the clock stopped ticking in 1973. On the back, in neat cursive. August was never the same after that night. If you read this, I kept my word. J. Postmarked. July 2002. Albany, ZA. Darius flipped it over again, eyes locked on the gas station. Something about the name on the roof, Turner's Stop, rung a bell. Not from memory, from a story. He pulled out his laptop and searched the name. Nothing. Then he typed, Turner's Stop, Albany, Georgia, 1989. There it was. An archived news story from a small Georgia newspaper. Fire at Turner's Stop deemed arson. Investigators search for ties to anti-government militia after 2 men found dead in cooler. 2 men. Darius stared at the grainy black and white image attached to the article. It showed what was left of the station: charred wood, twisted pumps, and a sheriff staring into smoke. The story said the station was a known NORC hangout. He looked back at the postcard. I kept my word. Was Jay referring to his father? To a promise they made to destroy Nork? And who was Jay? The next morning, Darius drove to his mother's church, not for prayer, for memory. The church's basement had a filing cabinet full of community newsletters and old paper bulletins that went back 20 years, weddings, funeral announcements, food drives, and one-off articles written by longtime members. In a 2003 edition, under Voices of the Elders, he found a short column from someone named Julia May Tramble. She wrote about leaving Georgia after the fires, and how the Lord guides even those with the heaviest secrets. The article was cryptic, but it mentioned Turner's Stop, and there was one line that gave him chills. August used to mean innocence, but it's also the month I buried the only truth I ever had. Darius leaned back in the hard plastic chair, heart pounding. He knew that name, Tramble, not from school, not from church, from the inside cover of one of his dad's Bibles. A handwritten dedication. To F from JMT, stay out of shadows. J, Julia May Tramble. J, the sender of the postcard. She was still alive, or had been in 2003. She knew Warwick. She may have even helped him vanish. And she might be the only person left who could tell Darius why his father walked away from that life, and what he had to do to make it disappear. Darius picked up the church landline and called the number on the bottom of the bulletin, listed under Contributor Contact, J.M. Tramble. It rang 5 times before a voice answered. Hoarse, tired, southern. Who's this? He paused. My name is Darius Langston, he said. I think you knew my father. He went by Frederick. But maybe you knew him as Warwick. There was silence. Then the sound of something dropping, a spoon maybe, and the voice whispered, Lord, have mercy. Julia May Tramble lived in a modest duplex off Route 19 in Albany, Georgia. The grass was patchy, the shutters crooked, and the porch sagged like it carried the weight of memory. Darius sat in his rental car for a long minute, watching the curtains shift, knowing someone was peeking back. He wasn't sure what he expected. Maybe someone in their 70s, maybe a bitter voice. But when Julia opened the door, she was sharper than he imagined. 60-something, cane in one hand, eyes like wet glass, the kind that saw through people. You look just like him, she said. He stepped inside. The air smelled like lemon polish and tea bags. On the wall were faded photos, some black and white, others yellowed with age. But there, in the center, was a photo of his father. Or Warwick, a younger version. Laughing beside Julia, arms slung around her shoulders like family. Sit, she said. He did. And for the next hour, he listened. Warwick wasn't born mad, Julia said, voice low. He was born afraid. Raised in a house where white meant right, where anger was discipline, and silence was survival. His daddy was a bootlegger turned militia man. By the time Warwick was 16, they'd taught him how to strip a rifle and recite scripture like it was war strategy. She sipped tea, hands trembling slightly. Nork took that fear and shaped it. Told him he was doing God's work. Told him enemies weren't just out there. They were sleeping next door, teaching in schools, marrying the wrong people. Her eyes landed on his. But something cracked when he met her. Renee. She was one of them, recruited like him. But she had questions. She had compassion. She's the one who was killed, Darius said. Julia nodded. They were in love, planned to run. Thought they could start over, leave the movement, earn every bridge. Her voice broke for the first time. But someone found out that night at Bramble Street. It was a setup. Renee was caught, gagged, tied. Warwick wasn't supposed to be there, But he came anyway. I was with him. He tried to save her, Darius. He tried. Darius felt his chest tighten. So he didn't kill her? Julia's mouth set in a firm line. No, but he killed 2 others getting out. One was his cousin. The other was Bones Darrow's younger brother. She wiped her eye, slow and firm. He went underground after that. I helped him disappear, gave him the Langston identity. He chose Baltimore, built a new life, a quiet one, started going to church, sent money to Renee's mama every year anonymously. Then he met your mother, Darius whispered. Did she know? She suspected, Julia said, but your daddy loved deep. He carried shame like a second skin, but he never once hurt your mother, never raised his voice to you. He didn't just change his name, he changed who he was. Darius let that sink in. All this time, he'd been trying to reconcile 2 people, Warwick Harlan the killer and Frederick Langston the father. But maybe that was the wrong question. Maybe the point wasn't who his father was. It was who he chose to become. Back in Baltimore, Darius stood in front of his childhood home, a modest brick duplex with a cracked driveway and the scent of honeysuckle on the breeze. He was holding something, a small box. Inside was the old Bible, the one with Julia's initials, a folded postcard, a copy of the FBI's official letter confirming the Bramble Street case had been closed, attributing the killings to a known Newark operative now deceased. Warwick Harlan was not named as the primary suspect. And yet, Darius knew the truth, not the courtroom kind, the soul kind. He buried the box in the backyard beneath the dogwood tree, said nothing, just pressed the soil down with his palm like sealing an unspoken prayer. Then he stood up and breathed. Epilogue, 2 weeks later. At Booker T. Washington High, Darius returned to work. He sat in his office, facing a student named Jalen, a quiet freshman who kept getting in trouble for drawing violent comics. I know what it's like, Darius said gently, tapping the desk, to carry anger, to feel like no one sees you. Jalen shrugged. My dad says some people just bad. Darius smiled, small, steady. Nah, he said. Sometimes they just got lost before they had a chance to get found. He handed Jalen a journal. Write your own ending. Ending note. Darius never changed his last name, because it wasn't about hiding from the past anymore. It was about honoring the man who tried, and finally became someone better. Some stories don't end with a verdict. They echo in quiet rooms, in broken trust, in lives forever altered. This wasn't just a case file. It was a warning about what happens when fear replaces facts, when systems protect themselves, and when good people look away because it's easier. What happened here could happen anywhere, because injustice doesn't need a reason, just an opening. So if this story reached you, don't let it vanish. Speak up. Share it. Start the ripple. Because every time we shine a light, we take power from the shadows. And maybe, just maybe, the next story won't end the same. Like, comment, share. Let your voice join the case.